The cop or cops that filed a false incident report, you're giving other cops a bad name, and I'm coming for you.
I absolutely 100% confronted the airport employees who put my safety at risk. Did I drop an F-bomb? I hope I did. Did I call them incompetent? If I didn't, they absolutely earned it.
All right, what a week it has been for Congresswoman Nancy Mace, also a candidate for governor on the Republican side. She's threatening all kinds of lawsuits against the Charleston International Airport, American Airlines. If you can name it, they have been potentially targeted by a lawsuit over an incident a week ago at Charleston International Airport. We touched upon it last week just a little bit on Connect to the Capitol, but this week it has accelerated. The Congresswoman has taken more of these claims to social media, more threats of lawsuits, and that's only part of the equation there. So we're going to go to our correspondent, Dave Wilson, who is in the other capital. You're at an airport right now, Reagan. And probably because you're stuck there because of the government shutdown. But we'll get to that in the next segment. We have to address this Mace situation first, because she was taking no prisoners on social media, targeting everyone from Alan Wilson to maybe even Kmart, for all I know.
It's so interesting, Brian, when you look at what Nancy Mace did in this particular situation. I'll give you a prime example. On this very walkway right here, security will go and meet a dignitary. They'll meet a member of Congress. I actually passed former Vice President Mike Pence here a few weeks ago. They will get security walkthrough and allows them to go down and pass security and actually gets them to the plane without having to go through all of this. Well, what happened with Nancy Mace is she made the phone call, said she was going to be arriving, asked for the security to meet her at the door. Well, in meeting her at the door, they said there was going to be in one color of car. That color of car didn't show up. And so all of a sudden she arrives and she doesn't have an escort. And in that moment, I think that we found that Nancy Mace was expecting people to be there, walks on through, gets to security, and meets the security guards there. And that is apparently where her profanity-laced tirade began. And that is what you don't see on certain elements of what you see on camera. But it is one of those situations where there's a responsibility that members of Congress have to be at a certain standard. And we have seen a lot of pushback from a lot of members of the South Carolina legislature, especially there in the Low Country. And then to top that off, you've got U.S. Senator Tim Scott, who she actually called out as, you wouldn't be doing this to Tim Scott. He called out and says, nobody should be acting that way. Nobody should be cursing out our TSA and our law enforcement, and absolutely no reason for this type of behavior to take place. Now, you put on top of that, Lindsey Graham then basically likes this particular tweet that he puts out and puts his own comment on top of that. So you've got this stack upon stack upon stack of people saying, Congresswoman Mace, calm it down a little bit. It's okay. But now her response is she's going to sue American Airlines. She's going to turn around and sue the Charleston Airport. Now, keep in mind, the Charleston Airport, Brian, has a very important role in tourism in Charleston. So what you don't want is for that gateway of people coming to visit the tourist destination that is Charleston, South Carolina, to be wondering what's going on with the lawsuit here. But then again, if people were to take a look at it, they're going to go, oh, well, it's Nancy Mace. It's the lawsuit of the week.
Yeah, and people, like you said, people are having fun with this. It is a serious matter because you're talking about security issues in the airport. But we also have a tweet from former Congressman Joe Cunningham, and also included in that, former Governor Mark Sanford, just having fun with this, saying, you know, we're going through the hellscape that is Charleston International. And of course, they say we're just joking. Everything's fine. We had no trouble getting through here. She's become the target of jokes, but she has not taken her foot off the gas. We have one other soundbite, Dave, that you and I talked about earlier today that is in stark contrast to what was said in that news conference we saw at the open of the show, where she says, yeah, did I curse? Did I do that? Well, I hope I did. We have one more soundbite, Dylan, if we could play that right now, where this was.
He implied that a U.S. representative should not be acting the way she was. So in the video I'm about to show you now is the entire episode. You'll see over the course of 20 seconds from when I walk into the frame to when I walk out. I was on a conference call as I boarded my flight, so my phone is at my ear. I take my phone down for 2 seconds to scan my ticket. And then because I'm on a conference call, I put the phone back up to my ear and I stroll down the jet bridge to board my flight. This is why American Airlines and the Charleston Airport are being sued for falsifying an incident report.
All right, there's the video. Dylan, there was a little more video there actually that was showing the incident she was referencing there. I don't know if we'll get to see it or not, but she described it there in the soundbite. But I don't know if that's the incident that the TSA agents were referring to when she was boarding the plane. It might be the incident we saw a little earlier where she was walking in with the help of TSA. Who knows? Conflicting stories, Dave, is what we see.
Well, I don't see how in the world, honestly, Brian, this can be conflicting stories. If you have ever been to an airport in the United States of America, it takes you more than 20 minutes to get through TSA, much less to then turn around and get to your gate. And so for what she showed you in that 20-second clip was the walk well beyond TSA, down a passageway in the gate area there in the Charleston airport, and then 20 seconds of her walking up, scanning, putting her phone there to scan, and then to board a flight. That's not the entire time that she had been at the airport in Charleston. And it just seems to me that we're looking at something that don't really pay attention to everything. It's almost by lie by omission here. I'm not going to show you everything. I'm going to show you selectively what I want to show you, which is I walked in, I scanned it, I walked on. What we actually heard from this, Brian, is the fact that the American Airlines ticket agent apparently had heard enough of what had been happening on the walkway, where she had been having several loud conversations with members of the law enforcement that were there with her, TSA walking through with her. And then she made a comment after she had boarded. So to be able to turn around and say, look at this 20-second segment where I'm on the phone, I'm having a conversation, and then I scan my phone and I get on the plane, there's nothing here, does not match up with what she actually said in her press conference earlier in the week. So the question then becomes, Representative Mace, which one is it? Are you giving the full story? Because when you heard what the TSA members had said, when you heard what American Airlines agent heard and then reported, it seems to be something more than just I was walking through, I was on a conference call, I scanned my pass, and I boarded the jetway.
It does. And, that's been just part of her week. We don't want to get into the weeds here. There was another lawsuit this week by her former fiancé, Patrick Bryant, over some personal matters, but linked to defamation, too. So it's just been a week filled with dueling lawsuits.
Brian, he did push back. She is now getting pushback from several different folks. The ironic part of this whole thing, though, was the kind of funny ways that we do South Carolina politics in this state. Alan Wilson takes a group of Waffle House waffles to TSA to give them to them and thank them for their service to the airport there. Ironically, keep in mind, if you take a look at Nancy Mace's story of her experiences in life, she started work at a Waffle House.
At a Waffle House.
So it's just the ironic things of South Carolina politics here on a Sunday morning.
It sure is. And we started the show with someone talking about F-bombs on a Sunday morning here on Connect to the Capitol. All right, we're going to get to the reason why Dave is at the airport coming up in the next segment. We're talking government shutdown, all the things being impacted, SNAP, healthcare premiums, and whether Dave will ever get home again. That's when we come back on Connect to the Capitol.
So long.
Some families are forced to make a decision. Do I have health insurance, or do I run the risk of going uninsured? Or maybe do I insure my children but not the parents? or do I insure one spouse and not another? These are terrible decisions that families are having to make right now. And we all hope Congress will come to terms with this sooner than later.
That's Joel Lurie right there, former state senator, but also a prominent healthcare official here in the area, helping people get connected to healthcare coverage. Premiums are affected. It's enrollment period for your job or through government programs as well right now. Those premiums, though, because of no budget in place here at the federal level and the government shutdown, those are going sky high. So that's just one part of the shutdown now. Dave is experiencing another part of it, which just started rolling out on Friday, which is flights being cut, being grounded at the major airports. You're at one of them. But
right. I'm here at the Reagan National right now, and traffic is beginning to make its way through. There are going to be some people who are going to be walking through the screen right here as we get another Sunday morning started here. I think the thing to keep in mind, Brian, is there are so many different aspects. I was listening to a reporter talking with a passenger just a little while ago and asked the question, what do you think about all this? And the guy said, I'm just really pissed. I'm really bothered by the fact that they can't get anything done. So you've got SNAP benefits that have been impacted by this. You have health insurance premiums that have been threatened to go up because of a lack of subsidy extension. And that's really a lot of what's going on behind the scenes with all of this, because you've got Republicans and you've got Democrats who are sitting there bantering back and forth as to whether or not we continue to do extra subsidies for health insurance costs to keep those costs down. Because keep in mind, when COVID went into effect, we actually saw insurance rates go down a bit because the federal government put an extra layer of money on top of that to keep insurance rates low, especially during that COVID period. Well, those are set to expire. And so when those do expire, the premiums that you're paying right now, if you're on the exchange, are going to be going up anywhere from 20 to 40%. And that's one of the things that here in Washington, D.C., the Republicans and the Democrats are beginning to play with on the back end to go, are we going to extend those extra subsidies or are we not, and see premiums rising? And so you've got to split among Republicans and Democrats on this one. And that's one of the reasons why we're now in our 6th week of a government shutdown here in Washington.
And we could potentially have 4 to 6 more weeks of this, and we don't even want to speculate, but we just know what the impacts are. SNAP as well continues to be in limbo. On Friday, the Trump administration challenging a judge's order that's saying they had to fully fund SNAP. Not something that there's money available to do right now, it would seem. But we have more than 500,000 people here in South Carolina that are recipients of SNAP. And the holidays are coming. Food banks are strapped. We have a very real problem on our hands.
We've had the federal court system. Remember, here's your little civics lesson real quick. The 3 branches of government. You have the executive branch, which is the president, the legislative branch, which is our people who are sitting there bantering back and forth over how to do this continuing resolution. But the judicial branch stepped in this past week and told the Trump administration, you're going to have to find a way to put some level of funding into SNAP benefits right now, because you've got too many people in America who are on those benefits who are now going without the food that they need at home. And that, Brian, is a place that very few people are willing to compromise anything more than what's already been done. Keep in mind, the last time we had a government shutdown, SNAP benefits were not impacted at all. But in this particular case, they were left on the table. The clock has run out. SNAP benefits have run out. And so now the question is, are they going to find some way to continue to fund that? Or are they going to sit there and go against the judge's order that says that it needs to be fully funded? Now, you put on top of that, you've got travel delays because we've now had a 10% decrease at 40 of the major airports on the air traffic that they're allowed to have. The Trump administration came out this past week and said, we're going to turn around and ramp down over the next several days from 4% down to 10% reduction on the number of flights that are going to be going out of 40 airports across the country. This happens to be one of them. Catherine Glenn Foster, my co-host here with Bryant, it was actually stuck in air traffic issues, had to deal with issues with Expedia, had to deal with issues with United, having to work on flight issues because of travel that she has in Paris with her daughter. And so that has now left people all across the country dealing with this ripple effect of airport delays and cancellations. And we took a look at the board just a little while ago, and there are too many red strips that are on there right now, which are flights that have been canceled coming right out here out of Washington, D.C.'s Reagan National Airport. There are 230 flights on average that come in and out of here every single day, Brian, to more than 100 cities across the country. And when these flights get canceled and delays, these are flights that end up going to areas like Columbia, South Carolina, Florence, South Carolina, Augusta, Georgia. So when you look at Reagan's got a shutdown or slowdown, Dulles has a slowdown, O'Hare has a slowdown in Chicago, the New York airports are all on a slowdown, Atlanta's on a slowdown, Dallas-Fort Worth is on a slowdown. All of those are airports that feed into Columbia, South Carolina, into Charleston, South Carolina, into the Greenville-Spartanburg Airport, into Florence, and to Augusta, which are the major airport hubs here in South Carolina.
Dave, I'll tell you what, I'll order you an Uber. We'll get you home. I promise. I promise it'll be expensive,
one way or another,
but we're going to get
you
home. Hey, one way to change all this is the power of the vote. We had a municipal election statewide, municipal election, city, county level elections this past week. We're going to talk about what was, though, just a dreadfully low voter turnout when we come back. All right. Some of you watching, I won't say all of you watching, voted last Tuesday, the 4th of this month, municipal elections statewide, many across the Midlands, dozens of races. Voter turnout, though, in the grand scheme of things, was very, very poor. Very low single digits. If you want to change something, you've got to vote. You don't like the fallout from the government shutdown and the people making decisions on either side of the aisle, you've got to vote. Dave Wilson, we talk about this almost every week, the power of the ballot. That's why we do this show. That's why we highlight these issues that mean something to your pocketbook, to the fact that you can't get home right now. We had a shade under 4% of the eligible registered voters for those elections vote. Only 43,000 ballots, 1.1 million people were registered to vote for this election. That is not good, not at all.
No, and keep in mind, this is what we call the off-year election.
Yeah.
The regular election we talk about during the presidential election. The off-year election is when we elect governor. That's 2 years after that. So the next one that's going to be coming up is, of course, in 2026. And then we have what's called the off-year elections. And that's during this odd number years. So the third or fourth year of a regular election cycle is when we find that these elections are taking place. Municipal elections try not to get themselves involved in national and state politics. They try to keep these as off elections so that the attention can be focused at the municipal level. The thing that we run into, though, is this. We had a discussion about this several weeks ago when Catherine and you and I were talking about voter turnout. Back in 2022, it was less than 14% of the voters in South Carolina participated in the Republican and Democratic primary. And as a matter of fact, it was only 9% of South Carolina voters that actually elected Henry McMaster as the nominee for governor of South Carolina. And if you get the Republican nomination in this particular state, most likely you're going to turn out and win. And so such a small turnout, that's like you voting and everybody else around you not voting. Well, imagine this. You voted and everybody else in your house and everybody else in your neighborhood decided not to vote in the municipal elections. I know that I went and voted over at Elmwood Park and turned around and there were very few people there. It was walk in, walk out, took less than 4 minutes to be able to go and vote for the mayor of the city of Columbia, District 1 seat, and the at-large seat here in the city of Columbia with several people who were in that particular race. And now that's going to a runoff.
Yeah, we don't want to have long waits at the polls, but we want to have it take a little longer than 3 or 4 minutes. In the city of Columbia, Mayor Daniel Rickham, and he cruised to re-election. He's got another 4 years coming. Got close to 63% of the vote. I don't think anyone ever thought that race was in any doubt. But good to see people challenge a sitting mayor. You want to see folks get involved in the process. We just need more people to vote in the process is what we have here. So that was a clean race. But the city's at-large district seat, currently currently held by Oddity Bustles, who we've had on this show many times and on some Connect to the Capitol extras. She's going to a runoff against Sam Johnson, a former ally of former Mayor Steve Benjamin. So this is going to be interesting in 2 weeks, the 18th. Well, less than 2 weeks now.
Right. I mean, we're looking at a week from this Tuesday is the runoff election in the city of Columbia. If you live in some other municipal area where you had elections, if you did not vote, you still can vote in the runoff. So keep that in mind. If you don't know if there's a ballot for you to be able to vote on, you can go to scvotes.gov. You can put in your information right there, and it will show you your ballot. Who is on the ballot, what's going to be covered on there. So in this particular case, Brian, in the runoff election in the city of Columbia, there's the at-large seat. So of all the people that live in the city of Columbia, you can still vote in the runoff election, whether you voted in the election this past Tuesday or not. So make sure that you show up to vote in this particular election, because less than 4% voter turnout of 1.1 million people in the state of South Carolina is abysmal.
Absolutely is, especially in a state where people are proud of their politics. So we get another crack at it for the runoff, but then again, of course, we got our primaries for statewide elections coming up in 26 in June. All right, when we come back, we're talking about some good news, though. South Carolina schools are making the grade. The report cards are in, and they're better than the ones that Dave and I ever got.
We believe that every child can succeed. We also believe that preparing our young people for the future is a team effort. It's not just up to educators. We need to include parents, families, businesses, all have a role to play, and we've got to figure out how to create the partnerships that we need to give everybody a seat at the table in a way that is meaningful.
Big day earlier, a few days ago. The latest South Carolina school report cards show that the state's graduation rate is at a 10-year high, inching closer to 90% on-time graduation rate. State education officials celebrating that this week. This is likely due in part to a lot more funding going towards education here in South Carolina, trying to keep the best teachers here. We're not there yet, but this is the best in a decade. Progress is being made.
Yeah, there's a big focus that has gone around in education over the last decade and a half. You've got Henry McMaster, who has turned around and made the commitment that we were going to bring teacher pay up to $50,000 for a starting pay. That was unheard of 2 decades ago. The legislature has set aside money every single year. We have stair-stepped it up. We were at 48.5. This past budget is going to be up to 50 in the next one. And that's what brings in good teachers. And so when we have that going on, Brian, you pair that with the fact that the education community really pushed about 10 years ago for what's called the profile of the ready graduate. Are we college, career? Are we citizenship ready? Do our students have the skills and the knowledge and the abilities that they need in order to not only graduate, but then go into the workforce, go into higher education, should they choose? Parents here, when they go to their graduation preparation meetings with the counselors with their students, I know that I've heard that twice now with two of the students who are in my family. You hear this also coming from the business community, because the business community is saying, listen, we need to have the students who have the skills and abilities, not only the knowledge, but do they have what they call the soft skills, those tangible skills that allow them to actually come into a job place, learn how to do a job and do that well. And so higher graduation rates means that we're actually seeing real change start to take place in South Carolina's education. I mean, I know from this particular position that I'm at right now, Catherine's visiting Paris with her daughter, and I'm now leaving from here. So hopefully go back over and help her kids do some homework this weekend. But what we are looking to do right now is to see that level of change happen across every household in South Carolina as parents, educators, and the business community all get involved together on this.
Yeah, and I think we'll see the push again for more funding once the session gets going again in January. You would have to imagine that when Governor McMaster lays out his budget priorities, his executive plan, that's going to be another major piece of that pie. We got about 30 seconds left, Dave. We need some money to get you home, too.
Well, the lines have started to thin out a little bit, but you can be guaranteed this. The board right over there that shows you flight delays and flight cancellations has way too much red on it. So, I'm trying to get back to a red state, but you don't get to a red state with red lines on the board over there. So hopefully that starts to clear itself up soon. But it is Sunday in South Carolina, and we're glad that you could join us this morning.
Well, I hope I see you again before next Sunday. And in South Carolina. All right, Dave. Thanks again, as always. Catherine, as always, we thank her. She's stuck overseas. So we'll do it again next week on Connect to the Capitol. Everyone have a good week.